All right.
So I'm streaming live to YouTube now.
Okay.
Radio 6. Feed your mind and the rest will follow.
You start with figuring out what does health look like for you, physically, mentally, emotionally, and work really hard on being good at you.
Healthy mind, healthy body, healthy life. Soul Food on Smooth 98.1.
Well, live, love music and love life. You're listening to Soul Food on Smooth 98.1. And every Saturday from 8 till 8:30, we discuss matters of your health. And we hope that you benefit and most importantly, you take out something for you to implement and be more health conscious. We often say that prevention is way better than cure, less expensive than cure. And understanding the current situation of our healthcare, you would see that really prevention is better than cure. So we're talking about foodborne illnesses today. And if you have been in Lagos City, you have been in Nigeria, in fact, you've been in somewhere in the world, chances are that you're aware of the cholera outbreak. And a number of people have lost their lives to that. So today we just want to talk about a few of the common foodborne illnesses and how you can prevent them. Because according to the World Health Organization, the foodborne illnesses is responsible for 420,000 preventable deaths every year. And I dare say that even the number, that's more, because if you think about what happens right here in Africa and in some parts of Asia, you would see that that number might be more. And still, according to the Food and Agriculture Organization, as well as the World Health Organization, they said our food safety definitely should be everybody's business because around 600 million people fall sick as a result of 200 different types of foodborne illnesses yearly. So you have about 200 foodborne illnesses, but today we're going to talk about just two because there are a number of it, and we do not have the time to discuss all of this. But there are some of the common ones, which is what we're zooming into. So, as my guest this morning, I have a health educator, someone who wants you to be safe and prevent whatever illness, infection that might come as a result of the knowledge available to you. And she's joining me virtually. You can see us on YouTube. That is at Smooth 91 FM Lagos. Again, at Smooth 91 FM Lagos. And her name is Testimony Adeyeye. Good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you for being here and thank you for joining me. So,
Thank you for having me.
let's quickly dive into it. Before we even get into foodborne illnesses, I assume that your initiative, you've been educating people on the cholera outbreak and following the development. What's your take on all that's going on, and how do you think we're doing?
Yeah, I think with response, we are doing pretty well, even though it seems like we still have a high number of cases reported on a daily basis. I believe that we just need to do more awareness, right? More sensitization and ensure that people get the right knowledge and they know about cholera and they know how to prevent it, which is the ultimum for curbing the spread. Cholera is a waterborne disease, on the contrary to the foodborne illnesses that we want to talk about this morning. Cholera is waterborne and it is caused by a bacteria called the Vibrio cholerae. It usually causes severe acute diarrhea and vomiting among infected persons, and chances of coming in contact with cholera is through contaminated water and food, right? So many people who do not have access to clean water, who do not have access to good sanitation facilities can easily come down with cholera. And as the case is now, definitely is a source from a contaminated source that this cholera outbreak brought out from. And I mean, that is why we are where we are today. And then the most important thing is ensuring that a lot of people get to know and then they take precautions irrespective of where you are, irrespective of your location. Just ensure that you take precautions and cook your food thoroughly, boil your water before drinking, wash your hand as regular as possible. Most of these things, fortunately, they are very similar preventive methods. So, I mean, it's easy to swing along across body different illnesses that we are talking about here.
Talking about washing your hand very often reminds me of COVID. That was when people washed their hand the most, used lots of sanitizer. No, I don't want us to go back to such times. But one thing is certain, those things that we imbibed during the lockdown and beyond, they are things that should be a part of us every day. Otherwise,
Every
we're
day,
going to keep having such outbreaks. Thank you.
definitely.
So let's go to uh, Escherichia coli. That is one of the bacteria responsible for what a lot of people know as food poisoning. But first, I mean, we've got different bacteria that are responsible for different food infections and illness. And one thing that always is funny to me is how these bacteria are in your guts naturally. Some are in your guts, but something happens and then they turn out to be the bad guys. So tell us about E. coli and when things spiral out of control.
All right, thank you. So for E. coli, like you rightly said, Escherichia E. coli, we have various strains of this bacteria. So it's a group of bacteria that causes infection that affects the gut. So ideally, just like you said, so we have some good E. coli bacteria that resides in every healthy human naturally, right? And they even have benefits that they do to the body, right? They help to aid digestion and help with the whole digestive process and all of that. But on the contrary, despite the fact that they are good, when they get to certain other locations where they ought not to be, they cause infection. Right. So when they're in the gut, for instance, they're helping with digestion. But when they switch and they move to, for instance, the urinary tract, you begin to have infection with urinary tract infections and the likes of them. So they affect other organs too as well, not just the gut. So like I said, there are different strains of the E. coli bacteria, and most of these strains are harmful, right, on different from the one that stays in the gut naturally. And all of these strains causes different forms of effects on infected persons, from minor to severe and even life-threatening conditions. Yes, so when we talk about E. coli, for instance, the one that affects the gut, we have about 6 different strains of this bacteria. We have the enterotoxicogenic E. coli, we have the enteropathogenic E. coli, we have the enteroaggregative E. coli. A lot of them, we have enterohemorrhagic E. coli. So this one particularly, enterohemorrhagic, is the one that causes the shaggy toxin producing E. coli. For instance, now that's the most popular. So when we talk about outbreaks in different parts of the world with respect to E. coli, the shaggy toxin producing E. coli is the one that causes most of the outbreaks that we experience in the world. And this is one of the most deadly form of the E. coli bacteria. So this one causes a lot of diarrhea with even bloody stool, mucus-filled stools, and all of that. So when we look at all of this strain, they have similar symptoms here, and then some of them affect different age group. For instance, the enteropathogenic E. coli affects children basically, right? And then when we talk about the enterotoxicogenic E. coli affects travelers. And so when we talk about travelers diarrhea, we talk about the enterotoxicogenic E. coli. So all of this, they are different strains, they have different effects on individuals, even though some are very similar. And then that's why when we talk about the treatment of E. coli, we have to talk about having to identify which particular E. coli is affecting the individual so we can know the appropriate treatment to give to such individual. And then it takes me to the symptoms, right? Okay, the causes. Let me talk about the causes first. Yes, so some of the very most common causes of E. coli in general is eating undercooked food, most especially ground meats, right? Ground meats are miced meats, and it can be a combination of various sort of meats, and most of these animals get to be infected. But yeah, they also harbor the bacterial, and then if not properly cooked, right, undercooked, and a human being rather that gets to eat such food can get contaminated. A person can also get to be contaminated through drinking contaminated water, so from unreliable water source. So we have various water sources, and then if a water source is compromised, for instance, when we look at the lake, we look at the oceans, we look at the rivers, and we know that they are open, right? There's no opportunity for proper covering. This kind of water sources can easily be contaminated. And of course, because animals will go to the riverbanks and do all sort of things, they poo and all of that. Of course, you don't know the animal that has the bacteria in it and then has contaminated the water. And then some people that for some reason do not have access to a different source of water for their day-to-day activities will definitely get to use such water, and they can come in contact with the bacteria. We have other means through which the bacteria can be contacted. On unpasteurized milk, taking raw milk rather, and maybe eating some raw vegetables and all of that. Of course, most of these bacteria reside in the soil, right? The soil can be a very good host to many microorganisms in general. So those are some of the causes of E. coli, how people get E. coli. For transmission, there are persons to persons transmission of the E. coli, right? So we call it the fecal-oral transmission. For fecal-oral transmission, it means that the person gets in contact with feces. So directly, logically, it feels like, okay, how do I come in contact with feces? That doesn't make sense because I would not intentionally go in contact with feces. But then some people get in contact with these feces because one way or the other, we do all sort of things. Some people with certain careless attitude, maybe in a rush or wanting to do, or because of ignorance, poor knowledge, and all of that. Yeah, so people that might be infected, for instance, can go to the toilet and not wash their hands, and they come out of the toilet and then they are touching surfaces, they're touching things, or they're preparing food, and all of those things, including surfaces, including food, everything gets to be contaminated in the long run. And you comes innocently and you touch the same table and you don't know. And if the person is careless as well, gets to be contaminated in the process. So when you look at all of these things, you understand that it's a long chain. And I tell people that as much as we try to do everything we do, the housefly that you see beside you, you don't know where it's coming from. You don't know what it pecked on. You don't know what it has pecked on. You don't know what it has touched. And then that's why it's very important to be very conscious when it comes to all of these things in general. One thing about E. coli, another thing about E. coli is that so many people get to be infected and they don't even manifest symptoms immediately. So the incubation period for E. coli is between 3 to 8 days, an average of 4 days. And then some people begin to manifest symptoms, unlike some other foodborne bacteria, illness-causing bacteria. And then you find out that within this period of 3 to 4 days, they are busy spreading the bacteria all around, unknowing to them, right? And then so many people are contracting it and before themselves come down with the illness, right? Some of the symptoms, like we mentioned earlier, severe diarrhea. Some of the diarrhea can come with blood, with mucor, right? And so, sometimes some people experience vomiting, fever, a lot of abdominal cramps. Sometimes the extreme cases, because sometimes this disease can last for days, right? Extreme cases, people experience dehydration. Some people experience fatigue. Of course, fatigue will come with dehydration because the person is losing a lot of water from the body, and then the person gets to be weak. And then some people get to experience fainting. So those are severe symptoms that comes with E. coli. There are life-threatening conditions that also comes with E. coli if not properly managed. We'll come to the treatment at the later part. So if not properly managed, E. coli can result in a lot of life-threatening conditions. For instance, a person can experience hemolytic anemia. This is a condition where there is a shortage of red blood cells in the body because if red blood cells die faster than expected. People can also experience hemolytic uremic syndrome. This is a condition that allows blood to just clot in the body, and then it also affects the kidney, and then the kidney can begin to fail. Quite a number of life complicating features that can come with E. coli, even children now, because we already said some strain of the E. coli affects strictly children. So in children, complications can come with malnutrition as a result of wasting, because children that for some reason along the line, they are not able to get the nutrient they are supposed to get, or for some reason they are getting nutrient, but their body is not able to take in or absorb the nutrient they are taking, and then they are losing it at the same time. Of course, such children would experience wasting. So all of this comes to play when a person is infected with the bacteria E. coli. Then talking
Okay,
about the
before you go
treatment.
on, Before you go to the treatment, I just want to quickly ask a question about the severity of E. coli because you mentioned hemolytic, something anemia, and the likes. So, what determines the severity of an infection from E. coli?
So for instance, because in the process of losing water, fluids, right? The fluids that are lost in form of diarrhea and vomiting, for instance, is not just water, right? It's a lot of nutrients, it's a lot of minerals, it's a lot of things put together, electrolytes, sodium, potassium, and all of that together. So all of these things, for instance, because even when in the body system as the body functions and when food is being taken or even for blood to move, some of these nutrients are the one that aids movement, right? So imagine bloods that are not being able to transmitted from one part of the body to another because of the nutrient that is supposed to support the nutrient that support the movement of blood and water to different parts of the body are in very limited quantity. Definitely, there will be shortage of blood, for instance, for the case of that hemolytic anemia we're talking about. And then, of course, because of the damage that comes with it, I mentioned the sugar toxin producing E. coli, right? So that's the most deadly form of E. coli that we have, right? That particular sugar toxin, from the word sugar toxin producing, it produces the toxin that affects the cells in the intestine. So this toxin just goes ahead and do a lot of damages to the body cells, not just the intestine now, because a lot of the body parts are equally affected when this infection comes into play in the long run. And like I said earlier, it's not just the intestine that is affected. We can have E. coli affect the neurons, right? We can have E. coli affect the reproductive organ. We can have it affect the urinary tract system and so many organs like that. So all of this comes to play, and then we have ripple effect on different other functioning of the body.
Thank you so much. All right, so let's proceed to the treatments now. Let's say somebody is throwing up. I don't know if it comes to throwing up. Does E. coli come with that?
Yeah,
Or you're going to the toilet frequently and you have tummy pains and you just know that something is wrong. What should be the first thing that you should do? Because I say that to also ask the question of diagnosis, which you mentioned earlier, that there were different strains. So you need to identify the one that is troubling you and how you can deal with it. So a person who does not know what to do, I'm going to the toilet frequently, I'm throwing up, pains, what should be the first step of action?
All right. So for a person that is experiencing these symptoms, because again, these symptoms manifest somewhere, maybe you're at home or you're in a travel or something, and then you don't even get to know what exactly is wrong with you. So when people experience these symptoms, I think the first thing that comes to mind that we advise as medical practitioner is you administer ORS first. ORS is oral rehydration solution because a person is losing a lot of fluid from vomiting, from diarrhea, a lot of fluid, a lot of nutrients, a lot of electrolytes is being lost. So the first thing that should come to mind of every person is to restore fluid immediately to at least restore some level of balance for the person, avoid dehydration that can lead to severity and the likes. So ORS is a very good option. Yes, so there are other options. Maybe when the person gets to the hospital, they will definitely do some other treatment options. But because we don't advise self-medication, and then we cannot say, okay, this is what to use, this is what you do. But the first thing that is readily available that anybody can use, and it is something that, in fact, some people get to recover from E. coli by themselves, even without some major treatment. That is how E. coli can be, and some of these other foodborne illnesses. Some of them can get to overcome it and get over it within days, right? It's when we have severe cases that we begin to look for what medication is going to be appropriate for you to treat to manage the condition. So, but restoration of fluid is the most important treatment that can be done at home. So it's more like the first aid treatment that should be given to anybody with these symptoms. And then when the person definitely, if it's severe and the person needs to get to the hospital, the person will definitely be placed on a higher degree of fluids, IV fluids, and then some level of antibiotics that can actually curb the situation. On the contrary, why we don't advise antibiotics is because, unfortunately, a lot of people get to misuse antibiotics and abuse them, and then a person can take antibiotics that will even aggravate the situation. Right? So antibiotics can actually increase the severity of certain, especially the sugar toxin producing and E. coli. It can actually increase the severity of it and further leads to one of the complications I mentioned earlier, the hemolytic uremic syndrome, which causes renal failure in the long run. So it's important that one stay away from self-medication. But ORS does the magic. Really, ORS does the magic. Yeah, so many people would just take it, just need to be given the person gradually, little by little, to restore balance, to restore fluid to the person. If the person needs to eat this, okay, so now I'm talking about some of the first aid tips that can be done aside from ORS. If a person needs to eat, the person can be given some food low in fiber, less fatty food, less dairy food that can help to sustain the person, because again, dairy products, fatty products, and all of that can increase irritability of the bowels, of the abdominal region, and then of course complicate the matter. So these are some of the treatment options that are available for E. coli. ORS, it is something everybody can get around. It's something that anybody can even prepare at home. So if you don't have the one in the sachet form, it can be prepared at home. You just need a liter of water. Again, we have been talking about contaminated water, so we don't want to use any water. Most preferably, boil the water, because the bacteria that causes E. coli cannot survive under 70 degrees Celsius of temperature. So if the water is thoroughly boiled, the bacteria can you can be sure that the bacteria is dead, and whatever it is that is inside the water would even die, right? So the water must be boiled. You just need a 1 liter of water. You need half teaspoon of salt, and you need 6 teaspoons of sugar to mix your ORS if you don't have the already made ORS that you can do by yourself at home. So that's just the treatment options that anybody can make, that can use rather when the person is infected or anybody around is infected.
Thank you for the clear explanation. But I was just itching to ask you a question, and it comes from something I have heard a number of people say, that whenever you have what is known as runny stomach and you're going to the toilet frequently, some foods you can eat, you have to eat eba, gari, yam, and those really solid foods that, in their words, can hold your tummy. What do you say to that?
Okay, so it's not like really solid food per se. So it's more like less fiber rich diet. So when you look at gari, you know that it's less fiber. You look at rice, you look at, for instance, some people advise cracker, right? So all those things with very minimal fiber, no oil, right? That's why you hear some people that they will tell people, take rice, just little stew, or if possible, don't put stew at all, because you don't want, because oil, fatty food, fatty diets, milky or dairy products can irritate the bowels more and then aggravate the whole condition. But yeah, true. It's actually to help the lining of the walls of the intestine to get their strength and then to hold up together, right? Because of the damages that the toxins and the bacteria does to the lining. So literally what it does is they kind of attack the cells of the intestine walls, and then they kind of damage it. So that's the point, and that is why there is a kind of gush, like bowel disorder, and then there is continuous pouring outpour of fluids from the body. So you need something that can at least help to put the intestine in good condition, and it kind of restore balance to the intestine.
Thank you very much. On WhatsApp, good morning. My name is Shegun and I'm calling from Lagos. I really appreciate the awareness created, and this should continue once a while. Thank you for your message. All right, now back to it as we gradually wrapping up. We've not even touched salmonellosis or salmonellosis. It's been E. coli, but still on that. So I think you've given us first aid tips and what a person should do when they observe some of the symptoms. Will there be recommended drugs, or you have to go to the hospital, they have to run the normal diagnosis on you, and then they can proceed to treat you well beyond you treating yourself? I just want you to be again clear about that, because like you mentioned, this is something that a lot of people do on their own, and I believe is contributing to the antibiotic resistance that we have.
Yes, so I don't personally, and I know that a lot of medical practitioners would not even openly say or mention a particular antibiotics to use or whatever to use when it comes to medications, because again, whatever medication is meant to be used to treat whatever condition should be under prescription and monitoring, right? So, like I said earlier, the first line of treatment that should be given is the ORS, which is general, which we know cannot be abused. Of course, the only thing that needs to be known about the ORS is that it is only valid, let me use that word, valid for 24 hours. So after 24 hours, it needs to be discarded and then another one needs to be produced. But when the person gets to the hospital, for instance, if we have severe cases, like I said, some people would get to come over it in matter of days on their own without any maybe intense treatment or whatever you. But when the person gets to the hospital, most likely they would run a diagnosis for the person. Yeah, so they actually run diagnosis using the stool sample, right? They have to run tests on the stool to identify which of the bacteria. Does this apply to so many other foodborne illnesses, including the salmonellosis that we're talking about? So salmonella bacteria also is similar to the E. coli, very, very similar condition, causes, and even symptoms. But there are a little bit peculiarities among the both of them that people as well need to know about, right? So, but for treatment, use ORS. If it's severe and it is not coming down, it is not subsiding, get to the hospital.
Thank you. Well, because we're unable to delve into salmonellosis, but I think again, your extensive explanation on E. coli has covered a number of things that pertain to food poisoning generally. So if there will be any addition, but before we even go to the addition, I wanted you to maybe highlight some of the possible persons who can be at risk of any form of food poisoning.
Okay, so people that can be at risk of food poisoning, people, I'll categorize age, for instance. Let me start with age. Yeah, so children, infants, and children under 5 are at most risks. And then we have elderly people 65 years and above, they're also at risk. Yeah, that's in age category. We also have people that are experiencing, or some people that have certain chronic health condition, like people living with HIV, people living with certain other chronic illnesses like diabetes and the likes of them, even AIDS. And then we also have people that health workers are prone, they're at risk of coming down with some of these foodborne and illnesses and waterborne illnesses because they get to care for people. So even family members or caregivers for people that are sick also are at risk of coming down with this infection. Yeah, people that also stay in environments and do not have access to clean water, clean sanitation, proper sanitation facilities, they are also at risk of coming down with salmonella and E. coli. So very similar. Like I said, they have very similar properties, the both of them. So some of these are some of the risk factors. Some people that travel, again, we mentioned the traveler diarrhea, which is the enterotoxigenic E. coli. So some of them have they are at risk because of the country that you are migrating or you are immigrating into. So all of these are risk factors for E. coli bacteria.
And if I should add, those who eat street foods.
Thank you, because most of the street food, unfortunately, are undercooked. Yeah, so again, and one of the major causes of E. coli is when food is undercooked.
All right, then. Thank you so much. I think I should quickly take a call. Hello. Good morning. What's your name and location?
My name is Shogo. I'm calling from Lagos.
Thank you for calling. Do you have a question or a contribution?
I'm really to show it that they are creating. So my question is, are there centers created in communities, local environment? Because for me, this is something serious because it has to do with health. So are there centers government are creating or places people can easily have access to? That's just my question. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a lovely morning. All right. Did you hear the question? Do you have any answer to that?
I was barely able to hear him. Please, can you take what he said? I heard something about government.
Yeah, so he was asking if there are centers that a person can easily go if they have any case of foodborne illness or poisoning.
Yeah, there are centers that individuals can go when they have cases of foodborne illnesses, food poisoning in general. So there are centers all around. I know the Lagos State government, for instance, have a lot of public health facilities situated in different locations across the state. And then these places are very good places that can be approached for proper treatment. And I'm fully much aware of this now that we have the cholera outbreak. The Lagos State government has declared free treatment for related symptoms. Yeah, because again, we talk about most of these things are very similar symptoms. Cholera also, people manifest diarrhea and vomiting. So people that have those symptoms at this point, they are actually being treated for free in the public health facilities all around and even general hospitals. So I think this is one of the measures that the Lagos State government has adopted to curb the cholera spread that we're experiencing. So that applies to other illnesses like the foodborne that he asked now. A person can easily walk into the facility to actually get treated.
Thank you. And I'm also aware of primary healthcare centers, different primary healthcare centers all around different local governments. So you can easily check out the one that is around you and then go there. I believe you'll be attended to. Thank you so much for your time this morning and just taking the time to break it out into pieces that is understandable and easy to assimilate by anyone listening. I appreciate that. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
I take it that you are active on social media. So what's your social media handle?
Okay, so on Instagram, I'm Testimony Eunice. On Instagram, on LinkedIn, I'm Testimony Adeyeye. And on Facebook, I'm also Testimony Adeyeye. I can be reached through any of the social media platforms.
All right. So in case you want more clarification or you just want to know more about what she does, you can go to those social media platforms and you would see her right there. Next week, we will return with another episode of education about your health and wellness on soul food. But in minutes' time, it will be the children in the studio with me, and we will be having conversation on Curious Minds. So do stay with us. You're listening to Smooth 98.1.
And the rest will follow.
Thank you. I enjoyed the session. So I'm thinking we can have another leg of this conversation. Just like the caller said, we need a number of education on these common things that affect people in the society, because I would never have ever thought I would be dealing with cholera in this age and time. So
That's right.
So I'll sure reach out again. We can always do Zoom like we did today.
Thank you so much for having me, Ms. Tosin. I really appreciate it. It's an honor to be here. And I do hope that a lot of people can get to learn. I mean, that's what I'm passionate about, just ensuring that.
Oh, network? Really? Really? At least they waited for us to conclude the conversation.
People get knowledge.
Can you hear me? Yeah, you were gone for a bit, and I was talking to myself that at least the network waited for us to conclude the conversation.
In fact, I'm so grateful that didn't happen.
Thank you. All right. So I'll share the link with you in case you want to share it to any platform. I'll share the link with you on WhatsApp. Yeah. All right. Bye.
All right. Bye. Thank you. Have a nice day.
And you too.